When you're done, it happens with the V model as well. I think I've come across the V model, the
Okay.
V model.
waterfall. Yeah, the
Yeah.
agile, the waterfall.
The waterfall view the
The
energy.
V one, I'm not too quite thingy with it.
Okay.
But these two,
It's another methodology. I'll talk about
Is
it.
another
yeah.
A V model that you can't test
V.
without completing the project. Yeah, in V model.
So V model is
So
just like
that's
a V. So I want someone to check this link just to,
What
because I
is?
won't be able to do the final confirmation. So let me send it to Abby. I'll send it to everyone.
I can't hear you. Is it just me?
Can you not hear me?
you
Yeah, I can
wanted
hear
us
you
to
now.
test something. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
so I've just sent the link for the YouTube recording. So I want, if Abby, if you can check it, just to make sure it's showing the screen properly before I just carry on talking and it's not showing someone's head.
Hello,
It's showing
someone's
it. I
head.
can see Bimbola's head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it should be showing this my screen. Is it not showing my screen? Not yet.
It's
Not
showing
yet.
Bimbola's.
Yeah, it's my head that
But I can see your screen
So,
now.
Sister Bimbola, click on start screen then, so that who knows, maybe that.
yeah, that's what I'm
Mm.
trying to. Don't mind that she's saying she can only see my head.
Is it showing the screen? Is it showing my screen?
I can see your screen, Agile 101.
Yeah, but is that in the YouTube link?
Oh yeah, with the link. Oh, okay.
It's loading.
Oh, I don't know.
I'm coming. It's loading, sir.
Okay,
I can see live something.
I saw it.
just put it on
It was
Slack so I can
Okay.
check on my phone.
Tell me that you're shouting. You can only see Bimbola's head. You can only
Is that your head that is paining you?
Okay,
I can see live.
Yeah, I can see it, sir. I can see Agile.
just put it on Slack so I
Yeah, I
can
can
check
see
on
your
my
screen,
phone.
sir.
Oh, so it's showing my screen normally.
Bimbola's head.
Is that your head? Okay, me too. I can see Kemi's head.
But why is it echoing?
I can see Agile. Yeah, I can see your screen, sir.
Oh, so yeah, so if the video is, if it's fine,
Yeah, I can see your screen, sir.
okay. Yeah, so you can close it now. You can close
Okay, me
the
too. I can see Kemi's head.
But why is it echoing?
you can close the video now because it will be playing all over and over and it'll be disturbing us. Can you all close the YouTube link?
Okay.
Yeah, I can see your screen, sir.
Yeah, so you can close it now.
Okay, me too. I can see Kemi's head.
Hey, oh. Hey, I don't know how to do it.
Big Bombay.
Chinekeme.
Have we all
Please
closed
don't.
it
I've
now?
closed mine.
Yeah, I've closed mine.
Hey, well,
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
that
Okay.
was
So
very chaotic.
yeah. So yeah, so the Agile Manifesto, right? So there's 12 principles behind Agile Manifesto. So because when Agile came, the whole point of Agile was to, change the way things are done. That's pretty much the whole idea. But there was 12 main points that they focused on. So I'll talk about them one after the other. So number one, is, as it says on here, it says our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software, right? The most important thing there is early and continuous delivery, right? So remembered when we were comparing it with Agile, with Waterfall. Waterfall doesn't deliver early. It's the last thing. Before the customer sees the software, he would have gone through the long phases of all the phases in software development lifecycle. So remember, in Waterfall, you complete all the requirements, then you do all the coding and development, then you do all the testing, then you do all the shipping and deployment. And as an example, if a software was going to be done in a waterfall way, they can do the requirement gathering from January to March, From March to July, they can do the coding. From July to August, they can do the testing. Then let's say September, they might do the shipping. That's waterfall. And that means because the shipping is done in September, the first time the customer will see the software at all, we see even a logo, will be September, right? In Agile, the focus here, according to number one, is early delivery and continuous delivery of valuable software. In a year, using that same span, 2 weeks into January, something will be delivered, even if it's just a logo or a menu. You see something, the customer gets the software in their hands as very early as possible, right? And that's like as short as a sprint. So even if it's just 2 week sprint, you deliver something, you ship it, and the customer can see it. So that's how Agile is different from waterfall. So in Agile, the customer gets the software early and there's continuous delivery. So the continuous here means like every 2 weeks, you are getting something new. It doesn't have to be 2 weeks. 2 weeks is an example of a sprint, but there is a continuous delivery of valuable software. That means valuable there means something of importance to the business, right? Sometimes if you are delivering something that is not valuable, you might not fully satisfy the condition. But according to Agile, what you are delivering must solve a problem, must add a value, to that software. So for example, there's no login this week. 2 weeks later, there's login. Even after that login, you can't log out. 2 weeks later, there's log out. After that, 2 weeks later, there's add to cart. After that, 2 weeks later, you can pay with PayPal. 2 weeks later, you can pay with Visa. Another 2 weeks later, you can pay with Bitcoin. Another 2 weeks later, you can pay in pounds. You can pay in dollars. Another 2 weeks later, you can pay in Naira. Different feature is added continuously over the life cycle of that software. So that's point number one for Agile. Point number two, Agile welcomes changing requirements. Changing requirements. When you're talking of waterfalls does all the requirement gathering. Like I gave an example in our 12-month example. In that first 3 months, they are all just gathering requirements. And once all the requirements has been gathered, they sign it off and they give it a stamp of approval. After that stamp of approval has been banged, nobody is going to make any change. Like it goes into development like that, it goes into testing. So there are strict borderlines when it comes to Agile. When it comes to waterfall. But in Agile environment, Agile welcomes changing requirements. So for example, in this sprint, you might say, okay, we want login with username. In the following sprint, you might say, okay, we don't want login with username again. We want login with email. That's requirements changing, but it's practical. And, you are delivering iteratively. So something can change. If with Facebook, there are probably some things that they probably removed. Maybe something we used to be on one side before they removed it, they put it on one side. Or some people once thumbed down, after some time they removed it. So requirements can change in Agile, but waterfall is very rigid. So the second thing it says, which is part of that changing requirement, it says that Agile processes harness change for the customer's competitive advantage. And where this point is coming is because in some situation, because the customer is already using the software. So for example, now let's say the example is February, and we started delivering something in January, but in February the users, they wanted something slightly different. And because a business most of the time wants to satisfy the customer, they might say, okay, we will add that feature. There's sometimes you go to a website and they say, oh, what features do you want to see? Or what do you think we should add? And when a lot of users are asking for something, oh, can we have a like this? Or can we have stories? Or can we have this? The business can factor that in and they can make that available. And that's still a part of, changing requirements. Point number three, delivery or deliver working software frequently from a couple of weeks to a couple of months with a preference to the shorter time scale. And the shorter time scale here is a couple of weeks. As you can see, I've been using 2 weeks as an example, which is like the average sprint, and they prefer you to deliver every 2 weeks than every 2 months, right? So that kind of still mirrors the continuous delivery, but it's something that we all understand. Deliver working software frequently. Number 4, business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project. In an agile environment, that usually doesn't happen. The business people from January to March, they do the business requirements and they can go away. They can even leave the job. Some people, they just hire contractor. Okay, help us gather the requirements. It's 3 months contract. They come, they gather the requirements. They say, yes, this is done. They stamp it and they resign. They go. And the developers now carry the requirements, put it on their head, and they start, trying to understand it and trying to implement what's in that requirement. But in Agile, the business people and developer, they work together daily, every day. That's why we have the daily stand-up as part of Agile ceremony. So work together daily throughout the project, Yeah, and that helps communication a lot. So that's the point 4 for Agile. Number 5 here, it says builds projects around motivated individuals. Give them the environment and support and the support they need and trust them to get the job done. So this is a more agile approach as well. So for example, in my workplace, nobody kind of is not bureaucratic. Like I don't know the perfect example to give, but the people that are usually doing the work, they are motivated. They're interested in the job. They are not being forced, to do it. They love their job. Is one of the things that they like around agile. Like at my workplace, we play games. We sometimes we have PlayStation, because they want to motivate the staff, because they believe the team that does the work needs, the best support that they need. So they give them the environment. If you need a laptop, if you need access to this, if you need to test an iPhone 5 or whatever, they try to give them the environment and the support they need. And trust is one important thing there. They trust them to get the job done, because sometimes some people in a waterfall environment, they're always telling you what to do, like, oh, you should do it like this, do it like this, do it like this. In agile, it doesn't really work that way. They trust you to do the best thing and trust you to get the job done. They don't look over your shoulder like, what are you doing, where are you coming from? It's not really like that. It's a more friendlier environment, and traditionally that has been keep bringing good result and positive news to agile methodology. So number 6, the most efficient and effective method of conveying information to and within a development team is face-to-face conversation. So in agile environment, we value face-to-face than offshore, but, and when I mean offshore, I mean just Skype is still better, it's still close to face, but sometimes some people don't even communicate at all. It's just email only, but agile supports, sitting next to people that you'll be working with and people that needs to provide information about the software that's been built, like business analysts, product owner, developers, testers. They all meet face to face and they talk about the software. This is what we want the software to do. The button should be here, the button should be here. This is how the design should look. So face-to-face conversation is a plus, is what Agile Manifesto really, really bangs upon, Number 7 is working software is the primary measure of progress. Working software is the primary measure of progress. In Agile, in Waterfall, progress can be measured by how big your requirement book is. If it's they can say, oh yeah, it's a 250-page requirement documentation. Those guys did a good job. In Agile, a good job is not measured by how much documentation you put together, how many pages, how long your report is, how many text the business brief is, or anything like that. What they use as a measure of progress and success is a working software. So that's an Agile principle. Number 8, agile process promotes sustainable development. The sponsors, developers, and users should be able to maintain a constant pace indefinitely. So it's just mainly at pushing for a development model that is sustainable. So you kind of like work towards a standard that isn't like so for example, like you're not rushing things and the flow is not stable. So one of the examples that I will use is like when Scrum Masters quantify what goes into a sprint by points. So for example, I've mentioned an example like in our workplace, we do points based on the number of people that are available in that sprint. So let's say someone is on holiday and we'll only be having 4 people working on that software in that sprint. We won't be putting in, let's say, 30 points or 30 points of work to do. So we'll bring in the work that we'll do based on the number of people that we have. And if we have a full team, then we try to do the same quantity of work each sprint. So just to maintain that sustainability so that we know like, okay, this is what we are capable of doing. We won't try to bring in too much to do in that sprint. And if someone needs something urgently, we can take something out and replace it with something else. But what we are going to do is always the same quantity. So we measure the work that we are going to do by the same measuring tool, so to speak. So number 9 says continuous attention to technical excellence and good design, which enhances agility. So that's mainly just talk about the professionalism in the environment, and it takes there is a what's the word? There's a passion, for attention to technical excellence. Like, how do we build this? Are we building it right? Should we design it this way? So from a technical point of view, Agile gives more focus to the design and the technical architecture of the software that is being built continuously. So number 10, simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done, is essential. So I think that kind of just talks about the opposite of what you are bringing into the team and what you are leaving out. It just talks about how simple Agile tries to do things. You know that this is the amount of things that we should be doing, and we're not going beyond that. And they are really passionate about that point. So 11 talks about the best architectures, requirements, and design which emerge from self-organizing teams. So in Agile, there is a self-organizing team that doesn't have people like telling it, oh, this is how you should do it, this is how you should do it. The team come together and decide how best to build that application. So and that's why Agile is important. They like having, well, they put their trust in their team, and they believe that they will do what's best, from a solution providing point of view. So the team, which is made up of developers, testers, product owner, UX design, the whole team will come up with requirements. So for example, that's where we said a tester will contribute to the quality of the requirements, the developer will contribute much towards the architecture, the UX designer will also do more about the design, and and they'll carry each other along and deliver a beautiful product at the end of the whole cycle. And number 12, at regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective, then tunes and adjust its behavior accordingly. And the principle of the ceremony of sprint retrospective kind of like talks a little bit more about that, because you kind of look back at the sprint, look at what you did well, what you didn't do well, where you need to push in more effort. Are we communicating well enough? Do we need to communicate more? Do we not understand ourselves very well? Do we need to go out more? Do we need to play games so we can understand ourselves? So when someone is saying something, you don't misinterpret it. So the team kind of gel together and understand themselves to become more effective, and they mold themselves to become better. So those are the 12 manifestos, the 12 principles that are based on the Agile Manifesto. And yeah, and in a lot of ways, it's not like they're just saying, do not do waterfall. Waterfall is another methodology. Some people still use it, because in some organizations, they still need to do it to a certain extent. So an example will be in some banking sectors, they still do a lot of waterfall, even though now they are trying to change. And part of it is because they need. So there are some software developments that has some legal parts to it. So for example, can't find a better example now. But for example, let's say a bank software they will have like various policies that they need to adhere to. So for example, customer information needs to be managed this way. You cannot keep if a customer has left your company, you can only keep their data for 6 months. If a customer is newly joined, you should make sure they sign something before you collect their direct debit. So there are some that are driven by law, and those ones, the law needs to be set clear upfront. So for such rigidity like that, sometimes they find it is very difficult to adopt Agile, and they just try to module it all up. But that's an example of organizations that kind of still use waterfall and don't find it easy moving over to Agile method. So that's that. I'm just trying to look at a comparison for Agile and waterfall here. Yes, I think the only difference that this is trying to say is that this is not perfect phase anyway, but this all happens. So like this conception is like the conception of the idea, initiation, analysis, design, construction, testing, deployment. So in Agile, one must end before the other starts, right? So yeah, in waterfall, sorry, one must end before the other one starts. Rather than in Agile, you try to move quickly from one to the other. So for example, in waterfall now, using the Abby Cake Company as an example, if we want to say, okay, Abby, we want to do a website, the first thing that we'll do in Agile is to describe every piece of what we want to do. The website must have a cake picture, login card, visa payment. This. We'll come up with everything, So the conception is just like writing down the idea and approving it. Initiation is saying, okay, yes, we have the money for it. Let's carry on. Analysis is now the requirement gathering analysis, talking about all the user stories and everything that will be involved, from every documentation point of view, then the design, then the development, then the testing and the deployment. But in an Agile environment, as you're having the conception of the idea, you can even be testing the idea. So for example, once you just thought about the idea of, we can actually have a website where people can buy cake and do this and do this. So let's say a business that already exists, right? So even at that point that you came up with the idea, you can decide to ask some of your customers, do a survey, like take 50 people. How would you like to have a website? Would you think you'll be interested in ordering something? So like that's like testing an idea. So Agile kind of does that as well. So they test the idea itself, then they might, based on the feedback, if they think, oh yeah, we think a lot of our customers think having a website for booking or buying cake online is a good idea, then they might say, okay, how much do we want for it? Do the initiation phase, then start the analysis. And the analysis, it doesn't have to be everything. They can just do analysis just for showing cakes only. We just want our users to be able to see the cakes on the website. They do that, they design it, they construct it, they test it, they ship it. And after that sprint, users will be able to see, pictures of cakes only, and that's all. They can only just see the pictures. Oh, they will see the pictures. Oh, I like this, but they can't really. There's no like functionality yet. So depending on how they are communicating with their customers say, "Oh, it would be nice if we can have a like button on here." Then they take that idea again, add it into the analysis, then they code it, they ship that. Then users can now, like the pictures of the cakes on the website. Then later they can have their own profile. Then later they can log in. Then later they can buy um with their card. Then later they can book for a different recipe that doesn't exist. If they think, okay, recommend the cake design, then you can now add cake promo there. Then you can now have social media linked into the website, whereby if people post something on their Instagram page, it shows on the website, so you can have different features. But the whole point there is that iteratively you're communicating with your customers. Your customers have valuable software in their hands with each iteration and each delivery, and the business is getting something in return as well. So that happens in cycles, and that's why you usually see agile images like this. Let me just see if I can see the image. You should be able to see image like that. So that's where you usually see images like this for agile, right? You see iteration 1. And these 4 colors means that everything is happening. So the blue might be, so the blue, so the yellow there is design. No, let's start with the green. Oh no, let's start with the evaluation and prioritization. So the pink one is where they prioritize. Okay, this one goes in first. Then they get the detailed requirements, and they do analysis and design, the implementation and developer and testing, QA testing, then they deploy it, right? So that happens in cycles. Iteration 1, we deliver login. Iteration 2, we deliver likes. Iteration 3, we deliver logouts. Iteration 4, we deliver mobile responsive design. Iteration 5, we carry on and on and on and on. And we deliver something valuable and new each time. So this is another image that says plan, design, test, build, accept, deploy. Plan, design, test, build, accept, deploy. Plan, design, test, build, accept, deploy. So that happens cycle and cycle and cycle. And you keep adding value to the software over time. So, questions?
In that case, it will be loads and loads of cycles then
As much as
until the
is
system
needed.
is finished.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know that in Agile is a continuous process. I think looking back at number 2 of the thing you showed us,
Yeah.
is it number 2 or 3 now, where there is, in comparison with waterfall, they are strict on before this, after this, before this. So as in Agile, they keep adding things. Does it mean the project doesn't finish? Or when it's finished and more things are happening, could that be after sales service?
Yeah. So once the
So it
last
could,
feature has gone in, there's no point in adding anything to it. You might not have anything to add.
so if there is anything to add, then that will be maintenance after service, or
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And it depends on the product,
Mm.
So for example, like a website like eBay now,
Mm.
they've been I'm sure they've been adding something to it for the last maybe 10 years. And they might make some changes that might just be relative to technical design and improvement, But yeah, can go on. But some other website that is maybe just a small business, they
Yeah.
might not need to add anything.
Okay. Okay. Mm,
Let me stop recording and no, let's do some questions. Yeah. No, let me
This
stop
question is
recording.
doing my heart big.
Yeah, don't worry.
When I hear question,
You love questions very soon.
I tell